Welcome back to the chair. I'm actually about, as soon as I finish this video, and I'm gonna throw it up online to be scheduled for tomorrow, I'm heading out the door to go to Tokyo, so that's very exciting. But I got a great suggestion or a request, let's say, in the comments on just yesterday's video, and I thought it would be a really cool topic because there's something in this of inspiration for those who do not feel like they are at the top of whatever class it is that they're participating in. So whether that were in the field of MMA or science or piano, it doesn't matter. It's just an experience of you are not the best. What do you do? And how do we circumvent these things while at the same time accepting them without bitterness? So this is my story of attending the boot camp, the coding boot camp that I did with Wagon in Tokyo last August. So basically right around this time I was just finishing up to then go on the adventure to Thailand. I'll open this up with a little bit of useful information for anybody who were to live in Japan, and it's very much how the whole journey started. So I was working in Kyoto as a digital content manager, making videos, working with WowToYou, a bunch of interesting things. But that time came to its end. And I had to figure out what to do afterwards. Awesome guy. I don't think he's got an active following on his Instagram and stuff, so we won't mind me saying his name. Terrence was instrumental. He was a friend of mine that I spoke to when I wrapped up my job, and he said, "Dave, do you know that there is this government institution which is to help you whether you're unemployed, you lost your job, you quit your job, you're switching vocations, whatever it might be. The Japanese government has Hello Work, which is this, whatever department in the Japanese government which is going to help you with those kinds of things." And he informed me, my friend informed me when I said, "I'm thinking of doing the coding thing. Maybe is there a best way to do this?" He told me that if you apply to certain schools, that Hello Work will reimburse you a significant portion of your tuition at first. So if you just finish that course, they reimburse you it's 40%. But then as well, if you were to finish that course and then go on to find a job, they will then return another portion of the tuition to you. So for anybody who is in Japan now, or thinking of moving here and then trying to have a sort of exit route perhaps from teaching if they don't want to continue doing that, this can be a way to do it, and also to reduce your costs as you're doing so. So that's how it started. I realized that if I signed up for this particular boot camp, that I would get forgiven a large portion of my tuition or have that returned to me. And it goes without saying that if you're going to do one of these boot camps, you genuinely need to study beforehand. If you were to go in blind, treating this as though it were a standard school course, you'll wash out within a day. It would be that brutal and profoundly apparent to you immediately. So it starts with several months of study. If you're coming from zero, obviously, there were people who showed up to the boot camp who had several years of experience working professionally, but wanted to kind of sharpen their skills, get access to a network, things like that. So I went to an excellent resource, which you could use too. I'd recommend this is the best thing that I found for getting your feet wet without any other instruction, to learn about essentials like GitHub, to learn the basics of front-end structuring of web pages, all these kind of things. It's called the Odin Project, and it's entirely free, and it takes you through whether you want to do Ruby on Rails or JavaScript. There is a basic foundational course there as well, so I was working through that. And I did so for several months, really enjoyed it, had a great routine. I just get up, go to the gym, come back. There's this tomato timer, or something called the Pomodoro timer, which it suggests for you to make a list of the things which you would like to do in a day, and then you dedicate 25 minutes of focused effort to it, and then you take a 5-minute break. And then you do 25 more minutes of effort, and you take a break. And there's even, without getting into it, I joke, Huberman tells us, there's even science to support that when you take these breaks, it's actually really good for information, let's just say digestion and retention. So it was a really good method to learn. I had a lot of fun with it. My dad is, he was a programmer. He's now living in Argentina and traveling the world and having a really sweet life. So way to go, Dad. I should also preface, before saying the Odin Project, if you're like me and you're starting from nothing, I actually went to this site called CodeMonkey, which my brother had recommended to me because his son was using it as an introduction to coding in his school. He's a pretty bright kid. And don't be, do not, what is it, Jordan Peterson, don't be afraid to aim low. You should be fine with CodeMonkey if you know nothing. There's only information there. Who cares if it's for kids? In all honesty, we are at that level when we start. We know nothing. So I used CodeMonkey, then I used the Odin Project. I prepared, and thought that I had done so aggressively and reviewed the syllabus and everything that they sent to me. And then after 3 months, it was time to start the boot camp. So you went in, and it'll be cool. I can give you the kind of breakdown and the structure and everything. So it was in a really cool location. It's in Meguro. That's where they had it. It could change locations, I think. They're not absolutely married to that. But for us, that's where they did it, and they've been doing it for a while. Again, this is Wagon. So I got to the boot camp, and I really enjoyed at first to see what a variety of people were there. It is no mystery or hidden, it's no secret right now that as I go out into the world, I notice that increasingly everyone is younger than me. but that's okay. Apparently this happens to all of us. But even then, there was such a wide breadth of ages. So you had people who were like 22, 23, and an incredible international community, I'll say as well. We had people from Germany, people from Portugal, people from, I think, Argentina. Obviously, we had people from the US. We had a couple of Japanese students, interestingly, in the minority. I think it's because it's taught in English, right? So that can be, you got to be bilingual. We had people who lived in, it was actually a Japanese guy who had lived in Mexico for many years, which is really cool. But we're talking from all paths of life. You were finding people there. Great, interesting to me. I like people, I like stories. So we get there, we have our first day, and they described it, and I think that this is an accurate description. They said this is very much like you're going to have to drink from a fire hose in terms of the amount of information that you're going to absorb in these days. So get good rest. There were flashcards that are assigned every evening that you should do to, let's say refresh what it was that you did that day. And you were off to the races. So I can't remember the exact first thing we did. It was making sure that everybody had their computer set up. Honestly, that's the first thing. You needed to have your GitHub connected to whichever repositories being the place where a bunch of code is stored and you can connect to and then, adapt, update the code, change it, things like that. Pretty straightforward. And in the first day, I felt mighty confident. It was really cool to feel like those many months of preparation leading up to this were meaningful and gave me a return on my investment. And that lasted for about the first day. So I felt like top of the world. I was going around, there were certain people having trouble and I would assist them. I loved the opportunity to be useful to people and not feel inept at something. So that's cool. But as I say, didn't last long. So you come in the next day, and the way that it worked each day, and this was another interesting dynamic of it, was they're going to do a lecture. There's like 2 hours at the beginning. You got to do this, this, and this. And then they say, okay, you're released. There's all these challenges that you need to do, and we're going to assign you a partner that you're going to work with through the challenges. Fascinating dynamic here, right? Because you have people like myself, never coded a thing in my life, brand new as of the last 3 months, and you might be paired with someone who was several years into their career but was brushing up on their skills, or vice versa. The range of abilities that you could be paired with was extreme. And I found that this task, this programming, this challenge that was given to me, so exceeds whatever is the construction in my head. I am not built for this stuff, and I went from on the first day feeling like I was top of the world and top of the class and the coolest guy to easily, second day I was like, maybe I'm more like middle of the class. Maybe that's more the reality here. And I can't remember who I had as my first partner on the first day, but it was kind of relatively equal, and we just sort of plugged along. Not too difficult, but got it done. When it came to the next day, it was crushing. I believe I was paired with an individual, and it's all different dynamics. Again, it was one of these career programmers. They're not going to waste time with me in some sense. So I got paired with them, and then it was like we just veered off, where I'm on the first challenge dying, and then he's already on the fourth challenge. It's like looking over at me. I don't got time to explain anything to you, bud. I want to get this done. And it was just steamrolled depression, like bitterness, not anger necessarily, but frustration. All of these very human emotions that it feels as though, why can't, because I invested so much time into the preparation of this, why couldn't this work? I've gone through so many different careers. Can there be something that I'm good at, please? But then, after I got through that mindset, you have to digest the fact that you're like, I'm not the middle of the class. I constantly vied for the bottom position within the class. There was probably, there was like 3 people, and in all honesty, as it went on, I probably more consolidated to the lowest position and had to, rely on the kindness of others to explain and lead me through things, which is it turns into another cool part of this story. So when I was working one day through my depression and just accepting that this is life, that which cannot be changed must be endured, and there is something noble in that if you can bear it without complaint. So I'm going about my general failings and slowly plotting through the challenges that we have. And I was going to go to the bathroom, and then I heard behind me, and you'll forgive the horrible accent if he ever watches this, but he's like, "Are you DaveTrippin?" I was like, what's this voice behind me? And I turn around, and it was a gentleman there, and I said to him, I wish I had said I was. That would have been more dramatic and a little bit of humor in it. But instead I said, yeah. And it turned out that Connor, this individual, had actually seen some of the YouTube videos that I'd done. And we had some sort of common ground where he's traveled a lot. International discussions are of interest to him. And we got into some good chin waggle, good conversation between each other. And to put some background to Connor, he has a master's in mathematics. He's now 30. His birthday is soon. Happy birthday, Connor. I hope I didn't miss it. Has a master's in mathematics, and some would argue is a quite bright individual. So bright, in fact, that when there were all these, I'd say there were about 50 people, give or take, attending this thing, that Connor began, I might say, placing in the top 3 of the class. But then I honestly think at the end, you could argue, yeah, it was between him and a couple others, and then it's sort of interchangeable because you might have, one of them understood this problem a little quicker than the other one. But yeah, pretty good. So that was cool to meet this guy, and he's a very helpful person. If you asked for help, he would always give it. And it was kind of it's a cool skill to consider that it's one thing to know something, it's another to teach it. He improved in the way in which he was able to communicate to me, because our minds are so different. The way that he looks at something, you can't tell me in the same way that he understands it to me. You have to put it into this little ham sandwich right here. And he got increasingly good at that, and he is the reason that I was able to get through many of the challenges, if any at all. And then I do want to give a bit of a shout out. There were these exceptional individuals that you would come across and you'd partner with, that regardless of them being much better than you, they would bring you up to their level, which is like superhuman. That you could turn a horrible coder into a good one just in the way that you're able to communicate with them. So I was very, very impressed by that. That was actually the gentleman named Guy. He was like incredibly affable, super charismatic guy. and I really enjoyed the day that we had partnered up. So there's just a few people that you should know about. So continuing along, halfway through the program, they announced to us that there is, of course, going to be pitch day. I didn't remember this. I was like, I didn't see anything about a pitch day on the syllabus. Okay, interesting. And they told us that what is going to happen? Everybody in this room who has come to the boot camp, all of you are going to pitch an app idea, and you're going to do a presentation for it. And we're going to afterwards, after everyone's seen everyone's presentations, we're all going to take a vote. And whichever projects garner the most votes are going to then get a group made, and that group is going to make that project. And I thought, well, here's a chance for me to contribute a little bit more in my field of dreams, where I have ideas, I have aspirations, I have concepts. It's in the application, the technical application of them, that often things fall apart for me. So I thought, well, this is something I could do a little better. And I gave it some thought. And at that point, seeing that at this boot camp, we were the first that could ever access the OpenAI APIs, which is an application programming interface. It's that if you want to take another company's software and use that as a part of your site, that's what an API is. And so you could use OpenAI's image generation, you could use OpenAI's language generation in your site. And so I thought, why would I miss this opportunity? I'm a huge fan of tabletop RPGs. I spoke to one of my friends who was really into D&D, and he said, well, maybe there's something there in the way of being able to create narrative for players. Like, people aren't so confident telling the story. Well, okay, cool, great idea. Threw all my effort into the presentation and going up there and having a really good PowerPoint prepared that I might be able to convince a few people to come over to my project and work on it with me. Put in the time, put in extra time. And woe is me, for I had worked in the Japanese school system for so long. The thing that they generally create materials for on the whatever computers you're given there is PowerPoint. And so I had used PowerPoint to create the presentation that I would give on the day of the pitch. And then it came to that day, and I said, oh, can I throw this on here? Their computer, I mean. And they said, oh, but did you say you're using PowerPoint? We only use Google Slides. Ugh, okay. Well, let's just hope that it is all right in the end. Comes around to my turn, I go and plug in my USB, I start going through my presentation. I get to the critic, and I've rehearsed, like they were very, very, very strict that this should not exceed, I believe it was 3 minutes on the dot, because there's 50 people, and if everybody's gonna, it adds up quickly. So I get 1/4 of the way through the presentation, the powder keg is lit, it's about to go off, and I'm gonna reveal to the class why they should join my group and aspire to greater things. And my presentation crashes because it doesn't jive with Google Slides, with whatever I've done with the PowerPoint. And we then proceed to take the rest, like whatever, 3/4 of my presentation time to fix it. We fix it, and then they said, your time is up. So I was not overflowing with joy at that point. All this effort, all my dreams come undone. I returned to my seat and sat like a miserable old bastard in that seat, completely demoralized and assuming that there was no way in hell that I would ever have my presentation chosen to be a project that was worked on. But lo and behold, we finish, they start to vote, first project goes up, it was a really good one by one of the other top guys in the class, where I was like, yeah, that probably would get made, it was a good idea. And then mine was chosen. And it was a sort of thing where my big mouth finally came to aid me, because the joke afterwards was that Connor told me, he said, Dave, you didn't need to do the presentation. You wouldn't shut up for the last week about exactly what you were doing. You asked everybody for feedback, so we all knew, and if it was good enough, people were gonna just join anyways, right? Fantastic. So humbled, appreciating, I got the group together, and we had a fantastic group, from a good range, I would say. You had a disciplined, determined, slightly older gentleman who was going to be really good in the weeds for us. We had our young Korean American, just out of university, super bright dude, engineer, filled with energy, wonderful nerd like myself. And then we had Connor, or as I call him, the Skeleton Prince or the Crow. He's like a Tim Burton character, and I say that with love. And so we had this group together, and then I'll also say that we did quite well. Like when I looked around, you didn't have a total sense of it because everybody's, what are the emotions inside? You don't know unless you're closer to that group. But it seemed like our dynamic worked, and we were able to partition the workload and assign and make sure that everybody was doing something that they wanted to do. That's important, I think, to anything that you design. Allow people to focus on what they like focusing on. And everybody equally contributed as best they could. So it was excellent. And we were often on days just so far ahead of what we were intending to do that where other groups were staying late, we would often go home a little bit early because it was just going so well. So I got to feel more useful because I was in this role of like, pump your team up, provide a vision, give a little excitement, give something to direct ourselves at. I'm all right at that. I know where I want to go. I just need help to get there. And we had a wonderful experience. So the couple of weeks went by pretty good. We had like a little bit of human drama, it heated up at the end, but then we were good to forgive each other and be patient, and learned afterwards actually our little bit of friction was probably the least that any group had experienced, and that was a shock afterwards. I didn't realize. But it makes sense. These projects are really hard, and there's a lot of things that you can do to blow the project up all of a sudden, where all of you are providing code and feeding it into this main repository. There's lots of opportunities for you to overwrite something, do something you shouldn't have had, wipe out somebody else's work. It can be super high stress. So we navigated that minefield well, I think, in the end. And it came to presentation day, and it was a ton of fun. There's actually, our presentation, I think it's not private. Like if you went to Wagon presentations, you can go back and see what it is that we did on that day. And we had this cool, it was like a live presentation. We were pretending as though we were playing a D&D game and rolling dice. I had a little bit of humor in it, a lot of energy. I had to do push-ups beforehand because like my adrenaline was just through the roof. It's not anxiety when it comes to public speaking. I probably more enjoy than I should public speaking. It's just the raw energy of it. So I needed to get a little bit of that out beforehand, but it was really well received. Lots of wonderful feedback, a huge relief to be done, a little pizza party afterwards, that kind of thing. So following that, they did a course where it's not a course, it was a couple of days dedicated to, they had people who came in from all around Tokyo that were potentially hiring. So that was cool. This was the network aspect of it, that if you sign up for this course, they also have these connections within the industry that you're going to gain access to, and maybe you can get a job from. So we had different companies giving presentations, and it was interesting to see the ones that were cool, that you didn't expect to be cool, and then other ones that I thought were lame, like really bad, that I thought were going to be good. So that was an interesting surprise. And then they taught you to create a really good modern, CV or resume. And they even had a day after that where you could go in and people would critique your resume. So getting you set up for success, let's say, after you had left the boot camp. It was at that point that I thought, or I had actually thought this as I went through the boot camp, I was like, I am so low on the totem pole of skill when it comes to this whole thing, this software design, this programming, that I'm going to be, if I get a job with this, I'll be a front-end developer. Like if I went for a job, and those are, it's kind of like the art student of the programming world. Like programming, it is still programming to do front-end and design and stuff, but then you'll often get the opinion that back-end, the logical coding is the real programming, and I wouldn't so much disagree with it. You are doing a lot on the front end, but I would be doing only that if I were to get a job, and so I thought I love the concept of what we had at first developed here in our pitch that we showed to everyone. I should take a risk. That's all I've ever done. Because it's the clear option I should take. It's better for me, given the kind of person that I am. I should try and turn this into a business. And I had ideas, and it's very much how the site has turned into now, how it could evolve if we were to work on this project further. I think, come what may, it will always be one of the best decisions I made, whether this goes on to meteoric success or it dies with a whimper, not a bang, that asking Connor to go on this adventure, to take up this challenge with me and move to Thailand to create this business was one of the smartest things I've ever done. Because it happened because of me, it happened because of other people, but it happened because of Connor so significantly and just how good he is at this stuff. So there's I think there's like the example I always like to run the parallel. Maybe you know John Carmack, or is it John Romero? Maybe not John Romero. I confuse like directors with the first developer of Doom. I consider Connor is the John Carmack. And if you can get John Carmack into your business, you're a smart dude. So yeah, that was really cool. And kind of this miracle of it. I saw, like, when am I going to run into somebody else who could help me build this dream that is this prepared within this short period of time? Never. It actually raised the question of, how do people ever start businesses if all they ever have to rely on is a miracle, which is what I have done. But then consistently I've been met with miracles, so it seems like a viable path that you can take. And that was it. He agreed to come to Bangkok with me, where we then laid low and programmed our little black hearts out for over a year, or around that if you include as well, obviously, the boot camp. And now it is done, other than you always continue, you refine. Actually, bless his heart, Tikyo Sam today was Tikyo Sam put the website on his live stream. He might even still be doing it now. Bless your black heart, Sam. That man and I are going out. We're going to go on Thursday, and he's not paying a dime. He's going to get all the yakitori his heart desires, or whatever he wants. But that was incredibly kind of him to do. Big shout outs to old Tikyo for doing that for me. That's pure kindness. There's the story for you. That's the boot camp. I think it's an awesome thing that you should do if you're looking for an alternative to whatever vocation you do now. You have great options if you're in Japan financially to use Hello Work to help you out with that. If you find yourself struggling within the boot camp, accept it. It's fine. Look for the ways that you can excel, whether that would be to pitch, or that you, like, if you're good at front end, really focus on front end. I feel it is a question of finding your skills, finding your weakness, not giving a shit that you suck at something, and then focusing on what you can do, because what use is there in focusing on the negative? Nothing, and in fact, it'll actually degrade whatever success you might have, because the longer you look at something, the larger it becomes in your focus. That's it. Thanks for asking the question. That was a really good question. Now it's off to Tokyo. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.